the masses and in shaping our perceptions. For instance, and you're welcome to complete the expressions with me, what do we know something as? Let's see, separation of church and state. Well, now let's examine the First Amendment. There are a couple of clauses there. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion. Now, is that gun aimed at us or at Congress? Congress. Okay, let's try the second one then. This must be where the and state and church come in. Nor shall they prevent the free exercise thereof. Now, where are the guns aimed at? Us or at Congress? Congress. So really, it's not separation of church and state. It's separation of state from church. You may start using that now. Words have connotations, and they put something in the youth and put something in our minds, and we start to accept it as fact. How about this one? Innocent until proven guilty. Well, collectively, we have some amendments that address that. The 5th, 6th, 14th, they cover that. But isn't it really innocent unless proven guilty? Think about that. I'm concerned about a government that might move to innocent until proven guilty. They might just keep trying us. So it presents an entirely different connotation. So speaking of proper perspectives, allow me to go back and then come full circle by sharing some thoughts on the first two military conflicts the original colonies and the young United States encountered, and then I hope you will see how they relate to our current war on terror. So first, let's go back to 1776. In many respects, that war for independence from the British Empire was also a civil war. There were some 19,000 loyalists armed and supplied by the British that fought in the conflict. That represents about 20% of those who engaged in combat from the colonies that actually sided with Britain. It's interesting how the word loyalty, by and large, represents an esteemed trait, whereas revolutionary has some mischief about it. Yet here were loyalists fighting against the side that I presume all of you would have been on. I recently tried to determine when the name of that first war became established as the Revolutionary War. From my research, that war originally went by various names, most commonly just the American War, or the American Revolutionary War. Later, the British would come to know it as the American War for Independence. But early on, our new nation proudly embraced the name Revolutionary War. What does that tell us about the grit of those patriots who wanted to be associated with that term, revolution, in spite of all their propriety? You know, I'll bet someday some politically correct person will try to change the name to the colonial conflict with Mother England. Or something of the sort. Now let's go from the revolutionaries to a song about them that reflected their attitudes and successes in battle. At this very moment, that song is being celebrated by the city of Baltimore. It's the 200th anniversary of the national anthem, penned by Francis Scott Key in 1814, towards the end of the War of 1812. It was published as a poem in the Baltimore Patriot newspaper and set to an old English drinking song, To Anacreon in Heaven. I'll move on, no comment. Just over 100 years later, President Wilson declared the Star-Spangled Banner our national anthem, and in 1931, President Hoover signed a bill passed by Congress to make it official. But is this all that is to that story? And I'll bet even Baltimore's not celebrating what I'm going to talk about. There's more here that eerily relates to our current war on terror. As noted by several researchers and authors, I'll give credit to some readings I just went through with Paul Warren and Michael Owen. When you look closely at history, the Star-Spangled Banner was originally inspired during our first war as a nation, the one against the Ottoman Empire in 1801 to 1805. That took us to the Barbary coast of Africa. It was there that Muslim pirates, Islamic terrorists, held much of the world hostage. In fact, most seafaring nations found it easier and cheaper to bribe the pirates rather than fight them in a war and to lose citizens into their slave market. Such payments had been going on for years. Often, European nations even worked out treaties with the Barbary pirates. Do I need to make the disclaimers? Not everybody's bad, and there's some good. You know, in 1786, in between the Revolutionary War and the establishment of the United States in 1789 through the Constitution, some gentlemen named Thomas Jefferson and John Adams, who at the time were ambassadors to France and Britain respectively, they met with the ambassador from the Ottoman Empire in Tripoli, now the capital of Libya. They asked why American merchant ships were being attacked without provocation. The ambassador explained that Muslim pirates considered Americans to be infidels, and that they believed they simply had the right to plunder American ships. Now go a little forward to 1796, after the U.S. was formed. The U.S. government actually decided it was easier to pay a tribute of $83,000 for the protection of their commerce from piracy under the 1796 Treaty with Tripoli. Now, before you get totally disgusted about that, however, we were quietly expanding a navy at the time. So in 1801, the leader of the regime in Tripoli declared war on the United States. Thus, in essence, the Nation of Islam was the first foreign entity to declare war on the United States. In response, President Jefferson dispatched a naval squadron to the coast of North Africa to deal with the pirates. America's Navy, their show of force, quickly calmed the situation. You recognize by now why that famous Marine hymn includes the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. During that first Barbary War, a song arose called When the Warrior Returns. It was a poem song about an astonishing U.S. war conquest in that Barbary War, one that relates directly to jihad-besieged America today. Francis Scott Key actually just revised When the Warrior Returns with God Country Flag during the War of 1812. So the take-home message here is that our national anthem, the song that we sing at so many sporting events and ceremonies, and we heard in a beautiful rendition this afternoon, actually began as a memorial of America's world-leading action against the Islamic Ottoman Empire a decade earlier. Why is it that the remarkable victory that inspired the Star-Spangled Banner is not memorialized, but we glorify the later victory over Britain in 1814, which is perhaps now one of our closest allies? Why has Hollywood and the media largely ignored such a stunning upset coming from a young nation of revolutionaries? After all, a young America that had just defeated one empire, the British Empire, went on and defeated the second major empire of the time. One of those battles included so many heroes that even cities were named after them. For example, Decatur, Illinois was named after one of the heroes of that Barbary Coast War. Are they afraid that we might take some sort of pride, even renew our resolve to be a free and independent nation? Do they want us to yield our sovereignty to almighty government? I believe or fear that we are at, or even past, a tipping point in which the people see government as their savior and not servant. It is the government that draws from the people its authority and power. They work for us. That Barbary War also includes some rather intriguing coincidences. For example, William Bainbridge, who captained the first major ship to attack the Muslim pirates, he later went on to greatness in the U.S. Navy. Coincidentally, one of the U.S. Navy ships involved in the action against the pirates off of Africa in April 2009, they made a movie, Captain Phillips. Name of the ship, the destroyer, was the USS Bainbridge, which was named in his honor. Nice coincidence. That's a fun fact, but more seriously, is it a mere coincidence that September 11, 2001 falls on two Muslim anniversaries? The first Islamic jihad that raged for centuries in the last millennium, it ended on September 11, 1863. And, as I noted earlier, Islam called jihad on America in 1801. Thus, September 11th is the anniversary of the end of the first jihad, and 2001 is the 200th anniversary of their 1801 declaration against America. Not a conspiracy theorist, just presenting facts. draw your own conclusions. Everyone here, I'm sure, sees a link in that date for the 9/11 Benghazi attack in 2012. But also realize that it occurred on the same turf where the American Marines conquered the Islamic pirate thugs in Libya and opened the Middle East to missions and trade for the first time in centuries. So in conclusion, history has repeated itself. From that first Barbary War in America in 1801 to today's war on terror. So this is nothing new, other than today we have those who would be so gentle that their actions, or worse, their inactions, lead to unnecessary loss of lives. We must remain both vigilant and positive, as Joshua and Caleb were from the book of Numbers. No matter your religious inclinations, it's nevertheless a good read and with a moral. As the story goes, 12 scouts were sent out to seek the land of Canaan as a future home for the Israelite people and their posterity. However, 10 spies saw insurmountable odds and fortresses and declared the task too difficult. In contrast, Joshua and Caleb did not go along with the majority and tried to convince the Israelites that they could conquer the land. The Israelites, unfortunately, believed the majority's conclusions. As a result, all the spies except Joshua and Caleb were struck down with the plague and died. But Joshua and Caleb got to enter the promised land. We are far from perfect, but the United States of America is as close to a promised land if there ever was one. Be vigilant and call those out who are complicit in the gradual forfeiture of our sovereignty to the one world order. Let's continue to be Joshua's and Caleb's. In 2014, I still believe that there are more on our side than there are with the enemy. So today, we have 3 anniversaries, 9/11 and Benghazi, but also the 200th anniversary of the Star-Spangled Banner. Let us balance the memorials of September 11th with the hope from the other, as the last stanza reads, "Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved home and the war's desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just, and this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.